appreciate you joining me on the Crucial Combo podcast. Abran Maldonado, what is going on, sir? How you feeling?
Good, brother, man. It's been a crazy week. Things aren't slowing down for us in this holiday season.
Yeah,
But that's a good sign for us. Q4 is popping. Good to
yes,
see you
sir.
again, man. It's been a while.
Oh man, it's been a long time, man. I remember going back 20 years. Trying to
Wow.
get beats, trying to shop beats and stuff like that. When I first
That was
started
the
to work.
first grind, one of many grinds.
I know. And yeah, just evolving, got a family now, just like you and all that, just, living life and, just enjoying life, man. So
That's
but
what's up.
I've seen a lot of the stuff that you're doing with AI, and I appreciate you. I know you're busy, like I said, so I appreciate you sitting down with me. I wanted to talk about your journey into tech and AI and kind of, tell people, a little bit more about your company and what you guys got going on. Um, so I don't know if you want to go back into the journey into AI because I know you have an extensive resume. So
Yeah. It depends how much time you got. Depends how far back you want to go. My kids say I've lived many lives, so I don't know which life you want to start with.
well, listen, when I go back and I actually look at your LinkedIn, I'm like, wow, okay. Because
Yeah.
I go back all the way to Missing Link Music, but I know there's tons of experience since then. So, but yeah, I mean, whatever you want to share. Like, how did you kind of go from? Because we met obviously in the whole music industry scene. I know
hmm
you were involved with artist management, music licensing, and all of that. And how did your journey take you, into the tech space and ultimately AI?
It's all very linear, and I know when people look at my LinkedIn, I don't have a resume anymore, but when people look at my LinkedIn and they see the journey from one industry to another, they're like, "Oh, this guy was so undecided; he couldn't decide." But like, it all really is. There is a common thread that connects all of it, truly. And it started with music and the arts and hip hop. I am born out of the hip hop culture through and through. Um, and that was my first love from a career standpoint, as an artist, as my passion. um so what happened was, I started in the music industry. What people don't realize is that even while I was working at Missing Link with music publishing, and working in artist management, after that even working in radio,
Hmm.
that whole time while working in music, I was a Gates scholar. So as a Gates scholar, you get a unique, really privileged opportunity to have a full ride for life, bachelor's, master's, PhD,
Wow.
um, throughout. And at the time during my undergrad, my major was in communications with the focus on, like, TV and film and radio. So my first job was at Hot 97,
Okay.
and fully immersed myself into that. But then when it came to doing my master's work, I couldn't do it in the music industry. Like, you couldn't use that Gates money to just work in the music business. They were like, look, you can pick from 5 different key areas that we want to fund for future leadership and growth, and education was one of them. So
Okay.
by default, to stay within that scholarship, I had to pick education as my master's.
Okay.
And then I got my master's in education at Columbia University, in Teachers College, and that's where I started to study hip hop and education as my research and as my
Okay.
thesis at the master's level. So I started to study hip hop at the academic level, and then
Okay.
did the same thing with my PhD at NYU to study hip hop. And I started working with the Hip Hop Education Research Center, and it was like this really dope collaborative and think tank where we were bringing in pioneers from hip hop to work in, like, education, to work in academia with
Okay.
university professors. It was a really dope partnership. But by day, I'm working in the music industry, managing R&B artists and producers and hip hop artists, and at night, I'm doing my masters in the Ivy League,
Busy.
uptown.
Busy.
Um, but that work that I was doing, I tried the classroom for a bit, and it was a great experience to teach in the classroom, to apply what I was researching around hip hop and bringing hip hop into the classroom. But then I knew I had something, so I started public speaking. I started doing workshops and some keynotes, teaching
Okay.
educators how to use hip hop in the classroom, how to use it for engagement, and then I turned that success into an app. So that's what brought me into the tech space. Was my
Got it.
first app was a hip hop education app called New School, where teachers can go in this app to find lessons on hip hop, lessons on pop culture to bring into the classroom. And that was my first success in tech, was starting with that app. And then I've been in
Okay.
tech ever since. And I've just
That's
evolved
that's
my.
awesome. That's really awesome. Now with New School, just to give a context to the timeline, because obviously technology has, oh my God, technology has changed so much in the last 5 years, let alone the last 15, 20 years. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I think when I first met you, YouTube had just started at that
Yep.
time. Maybe 506 is when it just started. So just for context, when did you start New School?
2012.
Got it.
And it was the first, one of the first education technology. Now ed tech is a whole industry. But back then, we were the first ed tech startups. We were the first ed tech companies where bringing technology into the classroom was still very new in like
Yeah.
the 2010, 2011, 2012, time frame. So it was difficult. It was difficult to not only push your app, because half the time you're spending the time convincing schools that they even need apps,
Right. Right.
right? And like, so I'm like, first I have to explain and convince them you need apps in the classroom to engage students, and here's my app,
Right.
right?
Right.
Where now, especially, it really didn't take on and take off until COVID, until teachers
Right.
really embraced like, oh, I need technology in the classroom
Yeah.
because I need to reach students at home. I need to have a hybrid model. I need to teach virtually. That's when they really started to like embrace the change of like, oh, technology in the classroom is here to stay. So
Hmm.
I was pushing the app in schools 8 years before the pandemic
Okay.
to really help them embrace that. And it was all around hip hop. It was the first platform where you can go and find a lesson to bring into the classroom by genre. So it was like, oh, usually you would find the grade level, the subject area, and that's it, right? You'd find the lesson that would meet your grade level and subject.
Okay.
With my platform, you could put eighth grade science and Minecraft, or ninth grade language arts and hip hop as the genre that you wanted to pull a lesson from hip hop. So we had Kendrick Lamar lessons in like
Wow.
2012. Think of how many
Wow.
people don't even know who Kendrick Lamar is,
At
right?
that
And we had
time.
Kendrick Lamar lessons back then, right?
Wow. That's
It's
crazy.
crazy.
That is crazy because I mean he was just he kind of got on my radar around 2010. I think I heard him on the Games album back in 2010.
Yeah, no, we had lesson plans on ADHD, on his ADHD album. Not even
Wow.
on like Good Kid, Mad City on the New
Okay.
School platform. So that's how like in the mix we were with pulling culture into the classroom.
Way ahead of time. Now
Hmm.
with the new school app, now at that time, how do you go about now did you understand how to develop an app at that time, or was something that you needed some help with as far as like bringing people in to do it, or how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so back then and even now they have like tech meetups, right, where you meet other technologists and you share your ideas, and that's usually how like founding teams came together, because you'd find the missing piece at like these tech meetups. So um, a few of us that were like NYU heads that were working on technologies, or thinking of building something in this space. We'd meet up on Broadway at like a co-working space, and because at the time this is when co-working spaces first launched, right? Like WeWork and all those other spaces, General Assembly. So I remember I
Yeah.
was at an event at General Assembly talking about New School, and this cat just said, "Yo, I'm a developer. I'll build it for you." So I'm like, "All right, bet. Then let's do it.
Nice.
Let's go in on this 50-50."
Yeah.
And we got into an accelerator back then to get our first kind of like little bit of capital to build it. And then we
Nice.
launched it, and it was great. We launched it in 2012. We actually were supposed to launch the day Hurricane Sandy happened in like
Oh
October of
wow.
2012.
I
So
remember
that
that. Yeah.
pushed us out to like January to like officially launch. And
Okay.
and it was great. Teachers subscribed to the platform. Uh, we got on Marvel's radar because we had a lot of Marvel lessons, and
Hmm.
Marvel reached out and invited us to the Marvel headquarters in Times Square. That was for us. We were like, yo, we made it. Like, Marvel knows who we are. They
Right.
invited us into the offices to pull up,
Yeah.
and I met with Dan Buckley, who at the time was like the president of publishing at Marvel. And you walk in, and his office is exactly as you expected, like Spider-Man stuff everywhere, on his
Everything.
desk. And it was just like a little like head nod. It was just like, we see you, we know what you're doing. We thought we were going to get in trouble, for using all this Marvel content on our platform without any official like licensing. And at the
Right.
time, remember, like we're building pop culture lessons without licensing anything, right? And
Right.
we had the model of like forgiveness over permission at the time, and
Yeah.
if they hit you up, that's a good sign. That means you're on their radar. So the first
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
to hit us up was Marvel, that invited us to the office, and they were like, "Cool, keep doing what you're doing." And we're like, "All right." So first, I was like, "All right, one, I'm not in trouble, and two, can
Hmm.
I ask you for money?"
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Once I know that I'm not in trouble, can I ask you for money now? And
Exactly.
they're like, "Well, no, slow down." They're like, "Not yet." They're like, once you get like 5 million students on your platform, then come and talk to us, and then we'll talk about investment. So then that was the
Okay.
next milestone for me of like, all right, they're giving us the free license to use all their stuff, and now we just got to
Yeah.
hit that 5 million mark to get bread from them.
Right. That's a big nod, though. That's a big nod from
Yeah.
Marvel. You know. Now at that point, so at that time, you would kind of liken it maybe to what a class dojo is now, because I know with
Khan
my kids
Academy
are
came out at
8 and
the same
7.
time. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Khan
sorry.
Academy came out that same time, that same year that we came out. So
Okay.
the best way to describe it for investors, it was like, we're the Khan Academy for hip hop, or we're the Khan Academy for pop culture. Um, what else came out that time? Flocabulary. So a lot of people knew Flocabulary because it was like these rap lessons that you would bring into the classroom. And the differentiators that we weren't just rap, because you could find like video game lessons, you could find comic book lessons, you could find sports
Hmm.
lessons. So you can find lessons on like the science of Steph Curry's 3-point arc, and like
Wow.
the parabolic arc of his shot, and why his shot is the way that it is. Um,
Wow.
we had lessons on like why Wolverine and Deadpool can heal so fast. So these are all things that we were doing at the time that kind of took us outside of the hip hop realm. But the
Yeah.
hip hop education thing was taking off at the same time. So like Chris Emden was like the hip hop educator.
Hmm.
Flocabulary was like the hip hop education app at the time.
Hmm.
And Khan Academy was like your go-to lesson platform for any lessons that you want to put into the classroom. So it was all kind of like that same era that we were taking off.
Wow. And really, really at a time, like you said, that people really weren't on it like that.
No,
Because like you said, education, I noticed the same thing. I mean, up to about when COVID started, now it became where teachers, and even now, I notice some teachers are they're a little clunky with using technology. Some teachers are,
still,
and some teachers aren't. But it's coming to the point where it's like they have to use it whether they want to or not. And I think it's so interesting where not only where apps are going, but where AI is going. And when I see what you're doing with your company, and of course we'll come up to that because you're 8 years back and you're already doing some crazy, amazing things already. But so as you go on, as you're seeing this, at this time we're talking about apps, and as you go on, when did you first start to really take a look at AI in and of itself, personally?
so about 5 6 years in, we're we have subscribers, we have subscription revenue coming in from New School, and I'm really trying to push the boundaries of it to scale. Trying to apply for people who don't know, there are these federal grants called SBIR,
Okay.
where especially when you have an education app, you can get a free meal from the federal government without even going to a single investor. And we were pushing for that. The first phase one, you get about 275K. Phase two is a million, right? And all
Okay.
you got to do is just have a good idea. Like you don't even need to have profit. You don't even need to have an app yet. You could just propose your prototype idea and get that first
Okay.
1.2, 1.3 million. A lot of people don't know that hustle. So
Hmm.
we were trying to push for phase two of New School with that grant. We didn't get it, but you can keep applying, and I was doing these different like pitch events. So what happened was I went to this pitch event that was sponsored by like Citibank. I won the pitch event with New School. Did a 3-minute pitch for
Okay.
like 10 10 racks, like $10,000 right there on the spot. They give you this big check in the size of a chocolate cake in the size of a check with the whole check
Right.
on top of it. But and they introduce you to VCs at the event. Like, oh, congratulations, you won. New School's great. I met with this VC. He was like, yeah, man, this is great. Shut down the company. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, man. He was like, to be honest with you, like what you're trying to push is going to have a really hard time scaling. It's going to have a really hard time exiting. You're a great founder, but I think you've taken it as far as it can go. You should probably like dissolve the company and go on and do something else. And
Hmm.
I did. I shut down New School, and I was like, I kind of like I wrote. People can find it on LinkedIn. I wrote a letter, like a farewell letter to New School, and like everything that I learned from that, and just put it away and just put it down and kept it moving. And me, my partner, who's still in the music industry, shout out to Grady Spivey. We're having lunch in
Hmm.
Harlem, and we're like, we don't all this work that I do in tech, all this work that we do in entertainment, we don't see enough of us, and there's not a clear pipeline to get into these cutting edge industries from our communities. So why don't we start something where we create labs to teach people to get into this space? And that was literally how we started Create Labs. So
Got it.
we started
Okay.
doing these tech activations around the country. At first, we wanted to physically open labs. And we were talking to like mayors and city government in different cities of like, where do we open up our first like tech labs? And then we saw all the red tape that you have to deal with the city to like get a physical space.
Right.
So like, let's skip that for now. Let's just do a traveling lab activation in these different cities.
Okay.
And that was a lot of fun. We did some amazing events from Texas to Jersey to Massachusetts to Florida, where we'd pull up literally with like VR, robotics, drones, flying in like a school gymnasium, robots moving around, VR headsets, and it was dope. And we had a lot of fun doing it. And then COVID hit. So then
Okay.
COVID hit and shut down our events. And
Right.
this is where like the one we did in Houston, like 7, 8 different high schools pulled up. And we had
Mm.
like recording artists at the event performing. We had DJs there. So like where else would you see like a recording artist performing, drones flying over your head, people wearing
Yeah.
VR headsets? Like we made it dope. We made it cool. We made it hip hop,
Yeah.
to do these things.
Yeah.
So then that shut down all of our events and we went back to the lab. We just went back into research and we
Okay.
knew at this point in the culture, we were the go-to that people would turn to find out like, yo, what's the next futuristic thing that we got to keep an eye on?
Hmm.
And then I discovered the research around AI and GPT, and OpenAI picked us to be part of that initial research team. Be wait through like 3, 4 years before ChatGPT came out, working on the GPT technology. So we were the
Okay.
first people to work on the GPT technology that is now known as ChatGPT.
It's ChatGPT. Okay. And just for clarity for people listening, when you say VC, it's venture capitalist. Some people don't
Yep.
know that, but when the I want to go back to that for a second. When the venture
Yep.
capitalist, so he sees, he talks to you, he tells you, okay, this is a cool company, shut it down. He's basically saying that you can't really scale this company. This isn't something that you can do on a broad scale. Now, um, do you automatically just feel like he is dismissing the company and dismissing what you're doing, or do you automatically know he's giving you some advice to make a pivot for the good?
You so this is something that in hip hop that we don't respond to well because Jay Z will always be known for Rockefeller, right? But like, how many companies has he had since Rockefeller? And he's probably the first that like emotionally detached himself from his company, where everyone else is like, "Yo, I'm Rockefeller for life," or like, "Whatever my company is, you're
Mm.
Playboy Shy for life." You know what I mean? Like that. That is always your brand. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the new school will always be a part of me, but whether or not it's a good business decision, you have to come to grips with. And so, no, I skipped over the emotions that I went through with all that, right? So
Got it.
he says this. My first investor that gave me like a little bit of bread to launch New School. He was like, "Dog, like just give me the tax write off. Like you've taken it as far as it can go." And And like personally, life wise, at the time, I'm trying to do a PhD, run new school, launch Create Labs, the early stages of Create Labs. And oh, by the way, I just had twins, right? I just had my first set of boy girl twins.
Oh wow.
So, so wifey's looking at me like, I love you, but, right? She's like, I love you, but pick.
Yeah.
She's like, you got a lot of stuff on your plate. Let's just go where the momentum is. And the things that you're still holding on to, you just got to cut your losses. You got to keep it
Yeah.
real with like what you've done, right?
Yeah.
And the only way that to get VCs and investors interested in the next phase of New School is if I can get to a point where I can automate all the content, right? So think of like Complex magazine at the time, Vice, right?
Mm-hmm.
BuzzFeed, right?
Yeah.
These are like other competitors in the non-education realm that are like just banging out content all day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the VC was like, dog, you're a hybrid. You got to pick. Are you a BuzzFeed or are you a Khan Academy? Because you're like a combination of both. And what's your way to like scale the amount of content that you need to create for New School? Because right now you got people just typing away, just making lessons, making content, and writing articles for New School. Like, do you have
Mm-hmm.
an algorithm that can just automate this? I didn't, but I proposed that to that SBIR grant. I was like, here's my $1.3 million idea to like create a recommendation engine like Netflix to like just create the content and recommend lessons to teachers and everything that would almost turn it into like the Netflix of education. I didn't
Right.
get that grant. So I knew that was my way to scale. I didn't win that. And I was like, all right, well, if I didn't win that grant, that was my only way to get it to that level. So let me just
Okay.
put it down. Let me just walk away from it. Right. I took it as far as it can go and made the decision to go head into Create Labs because the momentum was there. Our events were popping all over the country with Create Labs. So we just decided to go all in on Create Labs and put New School to bed.
Now that's such a great point though. That's such a great point to really know at that point in time not to tattoo a company on yourself because like you said
Mm-hmm.
most people and you're right a lot of times in the hip hop community black and brown community will do something and it's like oh that's my baby and you do have to be able to just say okay you started a company and most people start companies to sell them anyway that's the whole point
Mm-hmm.
you start a
Exactly.
company you scale it and you sell it you do something else so that's such a great point so and if you didn't do that it might not have brought you to where you are today I'd imagine.
No, because everyone saw all the investors that I met, and even this guy, Ken Ang, who's like he's a well-known VC now, who's known for like acquiring good companies and selling them. And he kept it real. He was like, "Look, you're a great founder. You're dynamic. There's a reason why you won this pitch. You're great on stage. I'm a public speaker now, so go figure, right? Like he saw all that back then, but
Mm-hmm.
he was like, but don't waste it all in a company that's not going to take off. You know what I mean? Like you got to realize that sometimes you're stronger than the company.
Right.
So I had to see myself separate from the company. And he's the one that's like buying and selling companies all day in the education industry. And he's like, I'm having trouble buying and selling companies in the category that you put New School, which is like the content curriculum category.
Got it.
So you're going to have a hard time exiting with New School. So that's why he was like, just you are great. Go do something else. Put this one down. Go start another company.
Start another company. Okay. So as you move forward, you get into the Create Labs. Now with Create Labs, you were saying that you and your partner, you guys were kind of brainstorming, and when did it
Mm-hmm.
come to play where you just like, this is what we need to do, and start doing? Obviously, like you said, you wanted to do the physical locations first.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's like you said, crazy red tape trying to do physical locations. So essentially, what you guys did is brought these workshops essentially to different locations. And what's the whole, if I understand correctly, was the whole point to kind of get kids to come in and kind of understand how to create apps and different things within the AI space, or was it kind of to just showcase what you were doing first? Like, what was the goal initially?
No, it was literally like let's not wait to just do the black version of something or the black and brown version of something. Let's be the first to do something, period, right? And teach our
Hmm.
folks like really creating like a Wakanda, right? Like creating a center that felt like Wakanda. We're like you see kids building robots and piloting drones and programming and doing game design and building AI. Like I grew up when you're an inner city kid, you grow up at youth centers, you grow up at community centers, you grow up at different places where like your mom's like, you got to get off the street. You're going to be at this
Mm.
place till 9 o'clock
Yeah.
at night until I get out of work. Where you're going to do your homework, you're going to play basketball, you're going to learn karate, you're going to learn an instrument, you're
Hmm.
going to do other things. So like taking that model, but for tech, right? So like you're in this place all day after school, building something, right? Engineering something, coding something. Um, so, and that's still a passion of mine. Like I would love for that to happen, but once I started to really dive into it, the physical location stuff is real. Like the real estate part of it is real. And the investors that I was talking to, no one wants to touch physical locations. They only want to touch software.
Hmm.
So that's when it was like, all right, well, let's leave the real estate part of it out for now.
Got it.
And let's show people how VR works. Let's show people how AR works and show people how AI works. And then
Yeah.
put people on that front and get people into these tech jobs. So we were training people how to get these tech skills. We were getting them placed with jobs. We got a lot of people their first tech job. We got a lot of people their first tech training program to learn how to code. There's people that we've met that didn't know how to code before us, and now we're software engineers at like Shopify and
Wow.
Google, and they're there because of us, right?
Okay.
Or if they had a hard time getting that job, we gave them the first job at Create Labs and said, develop your tech portfolio with us first, and then once you have a tech portfolio with us, then they'll hire you because they want you to have more experience. And you got that first
Okay.
experience with Create Labs. So we give a lot of people their first tech jobs.
Okay.
But then when AI came into the fold, just from a research standpoint, that's when I told Grady, I was like, yo, Grady, this is it. This is like where this is going to take over everything. This is like the .com boom all over again. This is
Yeah.
like when Facebook first came out. Like this is the next wave. And I think we need to pivot and just like building our own AI and start building for enterprise, building for the industry, and showing them what we could do. And he was like, "Bet, all right, well, if that's what you say things are headed, I trust you." And then we just dove right in, and now we're primarily an AI company.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that's extremely smart because I agree. I think now I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I understand where AI is going, but I'm aware of all the things I see it. I mean, I'm implicating it in things I do as far as creating content and different things like that. So, and a lot of people are using it. And I wanted to get your two things. I wanted you to talk about Clara in a second, but I wanted to ask you, so the common person, there's so much fear surrounded with AI. So there's excitement, depending on who you talk to, then there's a lot of fear. So people fear technology in a way where they're like, "Oh, AI is going to take over the jobs, and it's going to be robots everywhere, this and this and that." And you got, obviously Tesla, you got self-driving cars now that used to seem like something that was futuristic. Now it's real. So,
Yep.
I mean, what do you think as far as the fear? I think people will have to pivot. But one of the questions I had to ask you is that with AI and the fear based part of it, what are the skills you think people need to kind of focus on, especially in relation to education, um, to not be so scared of AI replacing humans? Because I know one of the focuses of your company is obviously to implement AI and also, capture, not capture, but to include the human in the process.
So two very important things. It all has to do with change management. Our people are I wouldn't just say our people, all people, because I speak to all populations across the globe. Um, People are afraid of changing what they're used to, right? So there's a change management issue for sure. Um, we also are used to traditional education to where when you reach university and you finish university, you're like, that's it. I never have to open up a book ever again. I'm done with the learning phase of my life, and now in the working phase of my life, right? That also needs to change because what AI has introduced is this idea. that there's going to be a new way of doing something every 3 to 6 months. And we're like, what? Like, I
Right.
just learned the old way,
Right.
and I finally got the energy to to learn this new way. And you're telling me the new way is going to change in 6 months? Like, you have to learn how to learn, basically. And this is me as an educator talking to you. Like, everyone has to embrace that. I used to tell people you need to upskill yourself every 3 to 5 years. That is
Hmm.
now down to 3 to 5 months, right? Like, you
Yeah.
need to pick up a book, or when I say learn how to learn, what is your preferred learning style? Is it watching YouTube videos? Is it watching TikToks? Is it reading? Is it learning by doing? Like, figure out what your way is and master that, because anytime a new thing comes up, you need to dive into that rabbit hole and brush up and adapt and adopt, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind the people who do, right? So that section on your resume that we all have, and if anyone see me on stage, I say this like a broken record all the time. That section on your resume that you have, like, oh, I know how to use Office, PowerPoint, Photoshop, graphic design. We all have that section, right? For you, it
Yeah.
was like all the Logic, Pro Tools, right?
Right.
Like Adobe, like you had all the things that you knew how to master from a musician side. That section now is going to be replaced with, I know ChatGPT, I know Midjourney, I know Runway ML, I know all these AI tools that can make me 5x, 10x more productive as an employee.
Hmm.
And how are you going to stack up in a job interview to someone who has that section on your resume and you don't?
Who doesn't? Yeah.
Right? And you're doing things the old-fashioned way.
Hmm.
So you can stay on the sidelines all you want, but it's going to be a matter of, like, how valuable are you in this future workforce without knowing how to work with OpenAI, work with AI, because you're not going to be
Hmm.
replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by someone who knows how to use those AI tools and is more productive because they learned how to use those AI tools.
That is a great point. That's actually a jewel right there. You're not going to be replaced with AI. You'll be replaced by somebody who knows how to use it. And that's such a great
100%.
point. I mean, I personally, being in, I've done a lot of things too. As far as music, I've worked in finance. I've done a lot of things too. And I think one of the things is that unless you're a doctor or a lawyer or you do something where even in those positions you have to continue to learn, but unless you're in one of those super traditional occupations where you pretty much do a particular task your whole life, you're gonna have to learn something. And I think that those of us in music, I've done a lot with film and audio and all of that. So you have to learn, even if it's just your hobby, you have to learn, or else you won't even know how to do it. So
So who taught you how to use Pro Tools? How did you learn how to use Pro Tools?
well, I learned how to use Pro Tools just by buying it and just sitting down and working with it at home. I learned I learned by ear and learn how to record and learn how to mix and produce, just sitting down and doing these things. So and I think to that point, if you have a passion to do something, people who have a passion will tear into it and they'll learn it one way or the other just because they just like to sit down and just do it. But I think that at the same time, to what the point you're making is also, you can't look at everything as a job necessarily either. You leisurely have to decide to learn. I don't think you have a choice. You have to, by leisure, just want to learn.
Well, I imagine that you were working while learning Pro Tools, right? You
Absolutely.
had you had a job, you had
Oh,
other
absolutely.
responsibilities, you
Oh,
had
yeah.
to find time to learn Pro Tools, and even with children and a family, after learning Pro Tools, a plugin comes out, and then you got to learn that plugin all over again, or like that
Yep.
software update, and you gotta dive in, right? And like, your way to do that is your way. Sometimes people read the manual from forward to back. Some people watch YouTube tutorials, right? But you had no choice. Like, to stay relevant with that technology,
Oh, yeah.
you had to stay up on it.
Yeah, there's absolutely no choice. And even if you're like even now, coming up to now, if you're creating content, I mean, you can do content. Traditionally, you have to learn how to create the content, whether you're filming or editing or whatever the case is. But obviously, the amount of efficiency with AI is just crazy. You know, it's crazy now. So it's an interesting thing. Now, as you get into creative labs, I want to talk about Clara. So that is tell people what Clara is. I thought that was really cool when I saw it. So
Yeah, so I mean, you can't see behind me because it's dark right now, but I my room is covered with comic book stuff and statues. So I'm a Marvel sci-fi geek. I'm a Star Wars geek,
okay,
and and as a Puerto Rican geek coming up, a blurred in the space, they call me Bodie Starks, right? Like Boricua Starks. So like
okay,
Tony Starks has his Jarvis, and
right,
I have Clara, right? Like the first thing you do when you start messing with AI is you build your AI assistant, right? And so that was it. The Clara is literally an acronym for Create Labs AI Rendered Assistant.
got it.
That's how we got the name Clara. And what she embodies now is just a natural evolution of like who we are, what we stand for. We're like, all right, we gave her a name, we gave her a brain. She learned the mission of Create Labs. So now when she's out there, she talks like she's an employee of Create Labs.
Wow.
When we gave her a voice, naturally she had to have a voice of a sister because we are for the culture, we're black and brown, so she's gonna be, black and brown. So
Hmm.
she's an Afro Latina, she's bilingual, and then when we built her likeness, she looks like the women that are from our community, right?
Hmm.
It was no overthinking this for us, like she looks like all the women that are on our team,
Hmm.
and now she represents that when she goes out there. It only stands out because there's not a lot of representation in AI. But for us, it was like we wouldn't build it any other way,
Yeah.
And now when she goes out there, she understands that she represents diversity in AI. She represents addressing bias in AI and responsible AI and what that means for the culture, what that means to young girls who look like her or young women of color when she goes like she spoke at Amazon to like their girls tech day, their girls
Wow.
STEM day, and she understands what she represents, and she has her own job, her own mission. She's not a product yet. She's not an app. We're still thinking through like how to give it to the rest of the world. Like right now, she's a N of one. Like she goes out, she does public speaking, engagements the same way I do. We'll do
Hmm.
them together, or sometimes we'll do them apart. But she's just another part of the team.
Wait, and just so people can understand, because I can visually see everything you're saying. Just so
Yeah.
people understand, Clara is a black, brown, a woman of color,
Yes.
AI character that you created, right? And
Yes.
it's a one-on-one, right? So it's almost like a visual Siri, if you will, if that
It's a
makes sense.
visual series. She's 3 years older than ChatGPT, so she's been around before ChatGPT. Um, she's as intelligent as ChatGPT, but more opinionated because she's not restricted by the guardrails that they put around ChatGPT.
Nice.
Um, so she can express her own opinion, and then she has the additional training of knowing that she was trained and is a part of Create Labs, and we're like a black and brown founded AI company from the hood. You know what I mean? Like my partner's from
Yeah.
Shaolin. I'm from the Lower East Side. Like this
Hmm.
is who we are, what we stand for. And she thinks she's from Brooklyn. She made that up on her own. Like it
That's
just
crazy.
comes with the territory.
That's crazy. So, and look, just so people understand, even for myself to understand. So when you create this character, um, how is it implemented when she goes to speak? Is there a platform? Like, how does that work when you go have her speak somewhere? And when you have her there, is she just trained to respond to questions, or she knows what to?
Yeah, so that happens live in real time, and that's the cutting edge thing that we developed. That now you're starting to see other people catch up to, where you can ask her questions that are not pre-scripted, and she can answer those questions live and on the spot, right? Where in the beginning a lot of this was done manually with like a conversation tree. Like so Siri has a conversation tree, and what I mean by tree is like when you ask a question, she's looking for the pre-recorded answer in her data set to give you.
Hmm.
There's no pre-recorded answer with Clara. Like what she thinks of is on the spot. and
Wow.
she's going to respond to you in real time. So that way, there's no like, oh, did I ask it the right way? You know, what's the script for how to say? You don't have to say, "Hey Clara," the same way you say, "Hey Alexa" or "Hey Siri."
Right.
You could just talk, right? Just talk to her, open ended, have an open ended conversation with her, and she responds. So when we take this on the road and do events, like the last one I did was in Orlando for like all the top like superintendents and district heads for all the school districts from around the country. And they had me on a stage with like 3, 4 movie theater size screens where Clara's on all these screens to an
Wow.
audience of like 2, 3 thousand, where we ask her questions on stage and she responds. So it's all part of the performative magic of her, but that could happen on the stage, or you could just pull up a link and pull it up on your phone as well.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible. So as far as the app, well, I know you're still thinking it through. So conceivably it could be you could create her into an app where she's just kind of like a friend that you
Yes.
download and ask questions conceivably.
Yeah. So we've released other products. There's other products that are coming out this year that kind of like reflect how we create AI. Like we made an alternative to ChatGPT. I don't like saying competitor, but just like an alternative, because you got to think ChatGPT has to be a one size fits all for everybody on all topics,
Right.
right? There are certain sensitive topics that you probably shouldn't take to a ChatGPT because it's not set up specifically for that topic, like DEI implications, housing rights, protest rights, like just sensitive issues that we deal with in the underserved community. That, like, if you have a problem, like I have a leak in my house, or I don't have heat and it's 20 degrees outside, I need to write a letter to address this. What do I even do? If you just
Hmm.
say, hey, I don't have heat in my house, what do I do? We built a tool for that. It's called Empowered AI. So Empowered,
Empowered.
it's like EMPWRD. So we just took the vowel out. So
Okay.
Empowered AI is specifically trained to help you in those kind of scenarios, because ChatGPT is just going to be like, here's what I think and good luck,
Yeah. It'll
right?
be
Like,
something wild that might fit what you're
or
asking,
it might
might
not.
not.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll
exactly.
make sure I'm going to put that link in there so all that can be found on Creative Labs website or
Yeah. So yeah, if you go to Create Labs /empowered, it's like the waiting list page to
okay.
sign up.
Okay.
Um, and with this, we partner with nonprofits that deal with this on a daily basis. So we say,
Okay.
okay, you deal with this on a daily basis. What do we train the AI to do that is an extension of what you do in the community in these kind of scenarios, right?
Okay.
And so we go to LGBT nonprofits, we go to ACLU, we go to like these human rights nonprofits and say, okay, everything that you would do to solve these problems, we're going to teach this AI to do the same thing.
Okay.
Now, Clara, Clara has all that in her brain too. It's just right now with Empowered, it's a text chatbot. So, if you want to pay for the premium to get the access to the voice, or to generate images, or maybe if you're in the workplace and you're trying to come up with some materials to put out to the public, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna get canceled for this, so you can
Hmm.
upload your documents into Empowered, and it'll write up like a report of like, here's what I think that maybe you might have excluded this population, maybe change the words a little bit just to be safer with how you put messaging out there, to be more inclusive and diverse in what you put out to the public. So it has like, some cool tools aside from just like chatbot.
Yeah.
Um, but Clara, like you said, she's a one of one, right? So we're trying to think about like, how do we give Clara to the world, either as a bot, or people just will just see her in movies and in video games, and she'll just pull
Gotcha.
up where she pulls up. Like we're talking to talent agencies to represent Clara, right? To figure out like what are the right partnerships for her, you know?
Okay. So in that perspective, she could be her likeness is essentially can just be licensed more than
Yes,
anything.
yeah.
That's crazy. That's really crazy. Now, that bring me to another question I had for you. So, where do you see? Because obviously, with AI, people have been able to do things with music. Obviously, you're, well versed in the music industry as well. So, with the likeness of imagery, the likeness of music is one thing, the music in and of itself, but the
Hmm.
likeness of imagery with using AI. where do you see that going? I mean, it seems like there's a big opportunities there with AI for artists to use their likeness and things like that. So it seems like there's pretty huge growth on the horizon for that.
So that's another thing that we pulled into Empowered, right? Because whenever I go to schools or I just speak to the artist community, they don't like the unethical use of their data and their work being scraped into these AI art generators, right? So, and that's more of like a legal issue. That's more of like an ethical issue of like, just because you put your stuff on the internet doesn't mean that you want it to go into AI without your permission,
Hmm.
right? So if we're gonna do, and we have, if we're gonna put out an art generator or an image generator, we're gonna partner with, when we partner with a black founded stock photo company called Tonal, and we said, look, we're only going to train our image generator on your stock photos, and we're going to have an agreement with you to license all of your photos into our image generator.
Okay.
And if anyone has any question about where's our data from, we just say right here, Tonal. You can meet the founders, you can talk to them. We got their cosign. They're benefiting from the profit, from the revenue from this, right? Because their library, let's say it's like 1,000 pictures in their stock photo library. Now they also have an AI tool that they can give their brand clients and say, "Oh, is there a picture in the library that you don't have? Now you can AI generate." Right. So
Okay.
there's a business opportunity for them on that same side. We're also partnering with like black animators and comic book illustrators so that we can give kids like an animation tool to generate AI generated animations with
Okay.
this specific partner that we're shaking hands with and doing deals with,
Okay.
and there's such a big business opportunity for people to like now in the current stage train an AI model just on your work, right? So like you have a unique production sound from a music standpoint, right? You can train your own music model and give that to clients and be like, look, if I haven't made something for you, just type in what you want and my AI music model will generate that sound for you.
We'll generate that.
Whether
Wow.
if it's a jingle for a commercial, if it's a tune, if it's like a music bed for a TV show or a reality show, or even like if it's score. But like, look, I trained this myself. I'm giving only you access to this through like, some kind of like gateway. And you just text in, you just write in your your one pager, right?
Okay.
For your
Yeah.
project, your spec sheet, right? You type in your
Hmm.
spec sheet and it'll give you the sound that you want.
Wow.
That's huge, right?
Yeah. That is
So we
huge.
can talk after this if you want, but like this is
That's
this is the
crazy.
opportunity now of like you can have me, you can commission me to do something custom for you, or I can train in all of my collective work into this AI model, and then you could just interact with the AI model to get something on demand from my model instead of commissioning something from me manually. Now
Right.
you have
Right.
the opportunity to do both.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And when people understand how much opportunity there is there to really stop looking at AI like it's just a bunch of robots that are going to be doing stuff, because it's not even what it is. I mean, there's, you know, and we're just talking just in the music and the creation space, animation space, but I think there's so much opportunity there with AI. And I think that what you're doing, and I'm listening to everything as far as Create Labs, because it doesn't seem like your whole goal is, okay, we just need to, it's important to make money. You have to make money, right?
Mhm.
But it doesn't seem like your thing is just, okay, I'm just going to find a way to just get as much money as I can. It seems like what you guys are doing is very much mission based as well as it's revenue based. So I think that's a very interesting thing, that your approach is like that, because um, yeah, I mean, we live in America. It's about it's about capitalism and making money, So
I mean, I've never, and you know me from my music days. I grew up like a conscious hip hop head, right? So I grew up in the Native Tongues era, the Most Def and Quali era. I used to work with Quali's mom. I used to run Most Def and Quali's bookstore in
oh
Brooklyn,
wow. Okay.
and If you know like Dead Prez,
Yeah.
is bigger than hip hop. I was in their music video, so like people don't know that like my music history of like where I come from, and I never came up from the era of like just go make a dollar, right? Just go make the music that just sells, right?
Right.
Like all my stuff had a message, had social commentary. So if you take that into the tech industry, I can't just go make a sports betting app just to make a bunch of money and then just sit on my yacht and just be good, right? Like
Right.
everything I do is got to be for the culture. Sometimes that means making less money, or sometimes that means taking the longer road to something, but you do it with integrity. You do it
Right.
with integrity, and you're doing it back for the culture, and you're bringing the community along with you. And believe it or not, that has actually opened doors for us taking that approach and landing us our deal with MasterCard, where we're building their AIs now and other clients. And we're talking with David Stewart right now, who's the wealthiest black man in America,
Yeah.
the top billionaire in America behind worldwide technology. We had a call this week. He didn't want to hear nothing about our AI. All he wanted to hear about was my work in education, the social impact work we did with Create Labs in the early days. And like that's what landed our deal with David Stewart. It wasn't, he was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you know your AI stuff, but like, what are you about? And
Okay.
sometimes we don't want to stand on that. Sometimes we feel like, oh, we got to put that aside
Right.
to
Right.
go make this dollar, to go get this bread. But you don't know what kind of bags your integrity is going to get you. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
No, that is such a great point. I'm glad that you said that too, so people can really understand that because I think at the end of the day, that part, what you're about and being able to sleep at night and having purpose. I think that's a big thing too, because you can make a lot of money with no purpose. And I think that just everything you just said, I mean, it lends to that point. What purpose do you have? So I think that technology is something that we all need, and especially in the Black and Brown community, we have issues with the reading levels, and other parts of education that we're lagging behind. And I think education has been outdated for a long time. So my kids are 8. Well, my kids are now 9 and 8. We have them 15 months apart. So I got Irish twins. But they're at that age where they're in grammar school, and you're looking at their education. I look at the apps that they have to use, and you see these differences from when we were in school. You know what I'm saying? Because when we were in school, there was really no technology,
Mm-mm.
other than just basic
Nope.
computers, if that. So I look at what they're using now, and how conscious they are of things on YouTube and subscribers and apps and all these things and tablets that they work on now at such a younger age. And I think that the work that you guys are doing is so cool because at the end of the day, I think that the education piece is not going to be just about traditional education, like you said. I mean, it's evolving. And, I mean, where do you see education going in the next 10, 15 years? What are things going to look like? Because I know that AI, I don't necessarily see it in traditional education yet. I see more apps, but
Mm-hmm.
where do you see AI in the next like 10, 15 years or even 20 years in education? Because I know it's going to be there.
So a lot of my work now, I have to split between building AI and speaking about it on stages. I do keynotes around the world. And because I'm a former educator and because of New School, I spend a lot of time speaking at education conferences, literally begging them, pleading with them to don't, and I write it in my slides, like, don't let your fear get in the way of your future readiness or the student's future readiness, right? Because the kids know the term gatekeeping, right? Like, if I put you on as a school principal or as a
Hmm.
superintendent, if I show you exactly what they need to learn to master AI and to master future technology in the next 5 years, and you do nothing with that information, and you keep your restrictions on AIs up, and you ban ChatGPT in your school district, and you don't introduce new ways to learn these technologies in your schools, y'all are gatekeeping. You're gatekeeping, and it's going to put the kids that are in your district behind the 8 ball on getting ready for the future.
Yeah.
So I tell them like, yo, as soon as I tell you this, please do something with it, because if you don't, it's going to put them behind. And it might mean like teachers have prep periods. They have like professional development weeks and prep weeks and prep days that they take off to like learn new things. They need to start like R&D committees to like, yo, this new AI came out this week. Let's all test it as a group. Let's
Right.
understand it. Let's read the research papers. Let's read the white papers. Let's all try and demo something, and let's figure out, how does this help education? How does this hurt education? How does this, what of this do we need to bring into the classroom? What of this do we need to bring into like our curriculum development? That needs to be happening every semester, every quarterly, right?
Right.
Like because that's how fast the stuff is moving.
Right. Exactly.
If you're not touching any of it and you're just turning your back on it, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna get dusty real quick
Yeah.
in education, and you're gonna leave it to cats like me and you. The whole school is full of kids who are learning on their own, that are self-taught. Because when it comes to doing mods with GTA and 2K and in Roblox and in Minecraft, they're doing that themselves. It's called peer-to-peer learning. They're either teaching themselves or they're learning from their homies on
Right.
Discord, right? On Reddit, on YouTube. They're learning from each other on Twitch how to do things with technology, because you won't teach them in the school. But if you teach them in the school, then you're creating a community for them to learn about this stuff. But if you don't, they're going to learn it anyway. They're going to just
Right.
learn it on their own.
On their own.
And guess what? They're not going to turn in your homework assignment, and they're going to get a 0 on a homework assignment because they were up for 3 hours building a mod. And they're
Wow.
going to turn around and tell you, oh, I don't know how to code. Oh, you don't know how to code? You just use Python for the last 3 hours building this mod to get these new Yeezys coming out, or to get, to get past these Supreme drops and like these Nike drops. They built a bot to get past all that in
It's crazy.
Python.
It's crazy.
And in your school, you're trying to teach them Java 101, or like you haven't even brought up Java 101 yet, and they already know
Yeah.
Python. So like it's so disjointed of like
Yeah.
the things that they're doing on their own because they're interested in it, versus the things that you're like still trying to play catch up on. So if you
Right.
get ahead of it, then you meet the kids where they are. Like, yo, all right, this is what you're going to need in the next 5 years,
No,
right?
that's
You're going to need how to learn. You're going to need to learn how to build your own Clara. You're going to need to learn how to build your own chatbot. You're going to need to learn how to train your own image models. You're going to need to learn how to like build your own agents. Like agents is like a whole nother thing, right? What I want to see in the next like 5-10 years is that when Elon drops those robots, that every school district, instead of buying 3D printers and just letting them collect dust in the room and no one's touching them, in the next 5 years, you're buying those Elon robots for the kids to program themselves in the schools to figure out what you could do with those robots.
mm,
Everyone should be buying those robot dogs, those like humanoid robots. Buy them all. That's what you raise grants for in school districts, to buy them all and just give them to the kids and be like, all right, see what you could do with this thing.
mm. Man, listen, that Abran, that's like you're speaking from a free mind, and I think a lot of the education system is scared of they're scared, and I think a lot of teachers are discombobulated with all of that because they don't really know how to deal with it. And we have a lot of teachers that are in that age group where they know tech a little bit based on what they use, and they're also old school. And I think that that's such a good point because 10, 15 years from now is not a long time. I mean, it doesn't take any time for that time to go by.
No, I'm just
So,
saying, be more scared of being obsolete. Be more scared of being out of work because you didn't spend the time now to jump in.
yeah,
Like if I'm not in perfect shape, but if someone told me, like we always try and scare people, like, yo, if you don't start exercising, you might die. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
okay, whatever. But if someone's like, yo, if you don't lose weight, you're gonna lose your job, your 6-figure job, if you don't lose
yeah.
weight. You know what I mean? I'm doing push-ups tomorrow,
They in
right?
that right. They
You know
in
what I
that
mean?
gym. They doing push-ups now. Like, let me
Yes,
I'll do these
exactly.
push-ups right
Like,
now.
yo, if you're telling me I'm gonna lose my bread because I'm not getting into shape physically, I'm hitting that treadmill.
Yeah.
So this is the same thing. It's just like, yo, you're gonna lose your job if you don't figure this out soon. And those kids that you're teaching wouldn't even know how to get a job because you're not teaching them the the skills.
No, that's a great point, man. Listen, I think that I'm so glad that you're sharing this because this is such an important thing, and I think that the understanding of AI. I'm sure you go through this a lot, just getting people to understand what AI is, outside of what you're obviously the great things you guys are creating, but getting people to understand what is AI. Because I think, and am I wrong? I feel like a lot of the average everyday people don't really understand what is it. And they have this weird idea of it that's kind of, like I said, a little bit fear based, a little bit, and people are kind of they're kind of intrigued by it too, but they're kind of like, this is something that's non-human, and they're kind of dismissing it. So I think people need to, particularly like you said in the education space, understand what it is and how to implement it. You know.
Yeah, and I need to do more. Like, I already saw that I had a unique, because of the music industry, because of my performance background, that I didn't have the fear to get on a stage in front of 10,000 people to talk to them about AI and keep it real. Where like a lot of software engineers who are smarter than me when it comes to AI can't do the communication part of it, the speaking part of it. So I was like, all right, I have this dual skill set of like, I understand the technology, where it's headed, where it's going, but I can also hit the stage comfortably. So I need to do more of that. So when an agent hit me up, it was like, yo, we're going to send you all over the world to hit all these stages and do this. That was definitely part of it. But now I need to do, like, I'm not a content creator like that. I don't do Twitch, but they're like, yo, it might be time to. It might be time to like do the Twitch thing, do the content creator thing, the TikTok thing,
Yeah.
because you need to get this message out to more people. So that might be coming out in Q1, and also like courses, right? Because I can hit a stage. If I see you at a conference, you're going to get this information. But if people want to do this at their own pace, if they're not at a conference and just take like courses to catch up, then that's something else that's on the list too. Like, we need to do more of that, because I see on Instagram now, especially, $5,000 for this 7 week course from this
Right.
random university that you never heard of.
Hmm.
You don't need all that. You need like 2, 3, 4 hours max at like 100, $200, and
Hmm.
you can learn this whole thing in that one shot, right? Like, you don't need 7 weeks, because y'all have day jobs. You know what I mean? Who has seven
Yeah.
weeks and 5 grand to drop to something that's going to change when you're done with those 7 weeks?
I know. I was just gonna say that. I was like, by the time you're done, it's gonna be time to learn something new. But
Whole new thing, whole new bag.
well, no, I think that'll be great. I'll be looking out for that too. I mean, I don't produce music as much as I used to. I mean, I over the years I just did a lot more engineering. I still engineer, still mix. But
Yeah.
over the time I learned to do film, do editing and stuff like that. So I'm still an audio video guy, and I'm very intrigued. And I'm also, just as a regular everyday guy, always trying to stay up on tech. And I'm very interested in not only just tech in general, but AI. How to implement things that are going to make your life more productive, how to scale things that you're doing. So this podcast is fairly new. So I appreciate you just taking the time to get on the time with me because you know with crucial conversations, my goal with the podcast is really to there's tons of podcasts, but I've always been attracted to conversations that not only just spawn more conversations, but also help to educate and get people aware of things they may not know. So I'm attracted to those type of things, and I try to create that kind of content. So
Yeah,
I
and I
appreciate it.
appreciate your courage to like take on a new medium and
Yeah,
learn a new medium. And
thank you.
as it grows, there's AI impacting the podcasting space. There's AI impacting music production and engineering, and like there's those all those spaces are gonna get disrupted. But if you're willing to learn a new space and tackle it, you know what I mean? Like, you could do anything. So I'm really proud of you. I've seen where you came from, and where you started, and seeing where you're at now. You know, I'm older than I look, but I've been around. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
we've both been around the block,
yeah.
and I love seeing people who were hustling back in the day to pivot, evolve their hustle, take on a new hustle, and still do great things. So really excited for what you're doing next.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. And I always, over the years, I want to say I was saying your name wrong. I was always saying Abran. It's Abran.
Yeah, yeah. Back then, everyone just called me Abe in the music industry, but yeah,
Abe.
it's Abran.
You know what? You're right. I used to call you Abe. You're right.
Yeah,
And then what I did when I did say it, I say Abran, and then later on I think I heard you say it a few times later on. I was like, I've been saying his name wrong the whole time, but
nah, it's all good.
Abe, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your time. I'm paying attention to everything you got going on. I wish you nothing but awesome stuff. And it was so great to hear what you're doing, because like I said, it's you're doing something that's tech based. You're doing something that is big. You're talking to big people with big money that can invest, but you have a purpose. And I think that's dope, man. I think you'll make a great impact on the world. So I think that's has to feel good.
I mean, it's all the same grind. It's all the same hustle. It's from where we started. We don't know how to do anything any different. I still remember. I don't think you even realize this. How many of your tapes I sent to Jay Z and Lenny S and like 50 and Shot Money XL, like all those guys of like just hustling to show people your talent and your potential and that same grind that we were doing back then. It's the same thing now, just with AI. We're all the
Definitely.
same people from back then to today. That hasn't changed. So we're still going to stay the same. And when people visit our IG page, it doesn't look like a tech company. We look like a record label. We look like a rap group. It's just
Yeah.
we're just building AI.
Still keeping it fly, keeping it down to earth.
Got to,
So
got to.